The next day, Damien would awake to a much commotion that was coming from the outside of his room with Louise. As he looked out of the window, he saw that many of the boys of Tristan Academy had their bags packed and it looked like they were ready to go. As Damien himself got prepared, Louise still sleeping in her bed soundly, he decided it was best not to wake her. As he went downstairs, he joined with both Tai Fam as well as Saito, as they joined in the proceedings of what was going on. Apparently, the army was being conscripted. In a case like this, all eligible young men were sent off into the draft. Of course, the war hadn't even officially begun yet, but still preparations had to be made, and there were no exceptions. It seemed like in this world, the men were expected to fight. The women could fight voluntarily, if anyone wanted to, but usually when it came to nobility, they stayed out of it. Even the likes of Tabitha and Kershay had already taken it upon themselves to return to their respective homelands, seeing as how they weren't originally from the country of Tristan, and them potentially being caught in the crossfires of another country's war wouldn't really be good for political optics. Even Guiche found himself being conscripted into the army as he said goodbye to his lovely girlfriend, a passionate and sweet embrace as he prepared themselves for the inevitability of war. Of course, for Damien, all of this felt like a bunch of grandstanding in the scheme of things, simply because none of these boys truly understood what war was all about. Sure, they had some skills with their magical arts, but they weren't warriors, they weren't soldiers, they were aristocrats, a bunch of college fund babies if Damien had to put it lightly, and he knew all too well that when the going got tough, a lot of them would be running scared, and understandably so. Of course, this also meant that the time for when they would have to take action was growing near as well. And then there was the matter of what Prince Wales was going to do. This was his country that was being enthralled into war, and because he had been disposed by the rebellion, he had no way of quarreling it at this point, as his entire family had been removed from the throne, and now Ward was running the show. "It seems like war is going to be inevitable," Ty would say. "Yeah, you're telling me. Henrietta looks really stressed about it all these days." "Well, what do you expect?" Damien would tell them. "She's a newly made queen, and the first thing on her to-do list is to prepare her country for an upcoming war. It's safe to say she's handling it a lot better than I would have expected her to." "Well, you have to give her credit. She's a lot stronger than you think," Saito would say. "Oh, and I'm sure you know. So what are you guys going to do exactly?" "I already told you," Saito would say. "She's my master, and I'm her familiar. Whatever she needs of me, I'll do it." "I've agreed to stay back and watch over the villagers," Tai would say. "I feel like that would be the best use of my abilities, to fight in a more defensive manner. That just leaves you. If I'm going off into the battlefield with the queen, Ty's going down to the village side with the common folk. That just leaves you here with the rich kids. Well, it leaves you here with a bunch of girls. Lucky." "Don't go saying that I'm lucky," Damien would say. "I'm the one that's stuck here." "And what's that supposed to mean?" Damien turned to see that Louise was already up and at him, and her arms were folded. "Great, now I gotta deal with this." "What? You think I'm just going to let you run off into war without me? If the queen so chooses to, then you and I will go into battle together. But until then, you're staying here." "I'm not going to argue with you on that," Damien said. "Besides, you could stand to be prepared. Have you even been working on your exercises like I told you to?" "Well, I mean, I've been practicing, if that helps." "No, it doesn't help. I'm not too sure what void magic is, but it's obviously powerful than any of the regular magic that you have around here. So it's clear to say that you have a special gift, but if you don't work at it or practice with it, you're not going to get anywhere. It's said that you have the potential to be one of the strongest mages of this world, and that power could potentially be useful in helping us get home. So it would be in your best interest for you to practice like you're supposed to, especially if there's a war that's just around the corner. I mean, what do I have to worry about? You're my familiar, aren't you? Aren't you supposed to stand at my side, protect me at all times? That is your duty. And don't act like you don't have the skills to do it. We've all seen what you're capable of. Yes, but I'm still one man. More like a boy. Come again? I mean, I don't see an ounce of hair on that face. And shut up. What? Why, Before you even try it, think to yourself, are you really going to be able to land a single hit on me? And if not, you're just going to be wasting all of your magic. So I suggest you put that wand back where it came from and you shut it. A part of Louise really hated when Damien did stuff like this. Who in the hell did he think he was? Sure, he might have saved her life a couple of times. And yeah, he wasn't actually skilled with a sword. He wasn't some pushover, but still, she was the master. He was the familiar. Louise would then tug on Damien's cape and pull him to the side. What? Look, I'll admit, you are a man of many talents, but it doesn't look good for me when my familiar goes mouthing me off 24/7. Then don't give me a reason to give mouth. You should just do as I say. What is this? You are a familiar. I am your master. It doesn't matter how skilled or how powerful you are. It makes my reputation look bad when you don't listen to me. I'm not your pet. What am I? Some dog that's just going to roll around and bark and fetch and do all these tricks for treats? Well, I did have this new collar that I wanted to. Not gonna happen. Ugh, you're so insensitive. I mean, have you ever thought about seeing things from my point of view? Do you know that it's not easy being me? Oh, woe is me. I'm Louise. I'm some rich aristocrat. Yada, yada, yada. I have to go through life without a care in the world, and I just have to... Louise would fire off a shot of magic with her wand, and just as Damien predicted, she would miss. And instead, she would hit one of the side walls of the school, destroying it. You gonna fix that? Well, I mean, you're the familiar. It's your job. You are the worst. By the afternoon, the boys had said their goodbyes as they were taking their leave and getting ready to join with the main fighting force of Tristan. Saito would say his goodbyes to both Tai Fam and Damien as he was preparing to head out with Henrietta. Be safe, Saito, Tai would say. Don't get yourself killed out there. Oh, come on, what do you take me for? If anything, the enemy should be worried about me. I'll have this whole war wrapped up before you guys even know what hit you. With that, the Blue Beetle armor would form itself around Saito as he transformed and flew off into the sky, flying off to join with Henrietta and the others in the preparation for war. As for Tai, he and Siesta would be heading off soon themselves. With the country going into a state of emergency before long, it meant that all school operation was going to be put on hold for now. With Siesta going back to be with her uncle and older cousin, Tai was going to be joining them in the village where he would be serving as its main protector, since most of the men would be leaving as the fighting force for the army. That would leave Damien alone with those who remained on campus. A whole bunch of whiny, spoiled, rich girls. This was going to be fun, Damien thought. But little did he realize that he wouldn't be the only boy on campus, because, just as everyone else was heading out, there was a new face that was heading in. A young man dressed in white with shimmering rays of gold and with a blue cloak wrapped around him, his blonde hair shining in the sun, his eyes both a different color, the left crimson and the other one a blue that shined like the sea. His name was Julio, and he was a transfer student from a school similar to that of Tristan from the country of Romalia. At least from what Damien had taken in, a lot of these countries, even in this fictional world, Durf the Talking Sword would warn Damien that Julio didn't seem like the average student. Can't you sense it, partner? His power, it's unlike anything that you've ever come across. And what's that supposed to mean? It means that he's not a scrub. He's someone who actually knows what he's doing. If you're not careful around him, he'll take you down a peg. It's not like I'm looking for competition. If he's capable and can take care of himself, then all the better. It means that there's one less person I have to look out for around here. Of course, while all the girls would be smitten with Julio, Julio had taken his interest somewhere else. That being Louise. And of course, for a girl like Louise, Julio was everything that a young, aspiring aristocrat could ever dream of wanting in a potential future partner. Regal, defined, someone that came from wealth and nobility and carried himself as such. Not to say that Damien didn't also, but he was a familiar, right? He was just a summoning from another world. Even if he was far more intelligent and capable than the average familiar, it didn't change what their relationship was. But with all of that said, Louise couldn't deny everything that Damien had done for her. Saving her life, always being by her side, believing and having more faith in her than even some of the closest people that she had known. With all of that being said, it left her rather conflicted. There was a duty to oneself, a duty to one's own family name, and sometimes those came into conflict. However, if you think that Louise and the girls on campus were just going to be taking it easy now that all of the boys had gone away and it seemed like things were slowing down, then you would be gravely mistaken. Because Agnes, along with her fellow members of the Musketeer Force, arrived and immediately dragged everyone out of the classrooms and onto the training fields, much to Osmond and Colbert's chagrin. They stated that because of the state of emergency, it was time for everyone to do their part, for everyone to pick up a sword and to know how to fight. If they fell under attack, it was going to be up to them to protect themselves, as Agnes would clearly explain. If the fight is brought to your country, Agnes would address to all of the girls, you're not going to be able to depend on the soldiers or the boys to come help you. You're going to be on your own. It's not like we can't take care of ourselves. I mean, come on. In case you've forgotten, this is a school for the magically gifted, one girl said, waving her wand, only for Agnes to immediately kick it out of her hand and plant it onto the ground as she drew her sword and held it to the girl's throat. Well, you gonna cast a spell? Go on, I dare you. Without that wand, you're not very special now, are you? You know, I could think of over 100 ways of disarming and disabling every single one of you right now, and I wouldn't even break a sweat. Your fancy little magic and your tricks, they're only going to get you so far. And if you don't have them, you're dead meat. So training is in session for all of you. The members of the Musketeer force were taskmasters, even for Damien's standards. But then again, he'd grown up in the League of Assassins, so honestly, as much of a hard ass as Agnes was trying to be, half of this stuff was rather tame. For Damien, he had just decided to rest under a tree, deciding that he'd do a little bit of reading and continuing to do his research. When Agnes noticed this, she would call him out on it. And why are you taking it easy, huh, kid? What? If the fight comes here, you're not going to get involved? I think you and I both know that I'm more than capable enough of holding my own. You don't have to worry about me. Instead, I'd be more focused on them, especially the pink-haired one. I heard that! You better. We got a cocky one, huh? Well, why don't you get up and show me what you got then? Seriously? I think you and I both know that would be a waste of our time. Agnes drew her sword, and Damien knew that there was no way of getting out of this. She wasn't going to be satisfied unless he showed her what he was capable of. So the two of them would spar. And for Damien, he'd have to give the girl credit. She was definitely more capable than he was expecting. Not that he looked down on her or didn't believe that she had the skills, but just that he didn't expect the fight to last as long as it did. And she could be pretty crafty when she needed to be. But ultimately, Damien would show her her place. Wow, you weren't lying. Don't sell yourself short. You really are a pesky fighter. Well, it's easy to say that you won't need much coaching. Then why don't you help me train the others? If you have the skills, then we could definitely use them. Where exactly did you get your training from anyway? I was trained by my grandfather, by my mother, and then by my father, and some of his friends. You must have one hell of a family. You have no idea. Julio would take note of Damien's potential, and he would even offer to challenge him to a spar. A little exhibition to see where they both stood. Now, under normal circumstances, Damien would have declined, but he felt extra motivated to take this fight. And Durf knew exactly why. You're only fighting him because he was making passes at Louise, aren't you? Durf would say. What are you... No. You know, not everything in life has to revolve around that girl. This is simply a fight between warriors, between two combatants with a fighting spirit. We're just testing ourselves to see what the other one's capable of. Yeah, right. You practically lost it when he was kissing on Louise's hand. Mwah, 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 mwah. Hello, Mrs. Louise. I'm Julio. I'd like to take you away and court you in marriageship. Like that'll ever happen. Louise is free to do whatever she wants. If she wants to marry a multicolored-eyed... Did I strike a nerve? Shut up. So, what's the strategy? It's simple. I'm just going to do a feeling out. This is nothing but an exhibition. It's not like it's going to get that serious. I can tell you safely, it got that serious. The girls all gathered around the courtyard as both Julio and Damien would take their swords, the both of them engaging in combat. For Damien, for the first time in a while since he'd come to this world, since his fight with Wards, he actually had to battle someone who could push him. Wow, You're pretty good for a familiar. Yeah, and you're not too bad for a knight. Although, Damien would say as their blades would clash, if this is the standard that knights are being held to, then I have to say the bar must be set pretty low. I would have to agree. We never expect familiars to be this good with a sword. Perhaps we'll take that into consideration at the next meeting. Louise would watch on as both Julio and Damien would engage in combat. Of course, in her heart, she knew who she already wanted to win. But still, she never liked seeing him get pushed like this. At least for her, Damien was the best around. There was no way that anyone could ever beat him. Not once. In her heart, Damien could never lose. She just couldn't fathom it. She didn't even think it was possible. Agnes and the members of the Musketeer force were in attendance as well, and even they were astounded by the boy's potential. She wondered why they hadn't joined the night squad sooner. These two would be perfect. I mean, if they had fighters like this around, why hadn't the Queen put them on the front lines? The fight would become even more ferocious. Damien would have to pull out all the stops fighting against Julio, fighting against someone who was seemingly his equal in terms of the blade. Things would eventually reach its crescendo as the boys were starting to draw sweat. It seemed like they were on their last legs, but this was supposed to be an exhibition. It wasn't like they were fighting to the death, but yet they were starting to ramp it up just a little bit. Things started to get a little dicey. Julio went to throw a closed fist to Damien's face, and Damien connected with a knee to the gut. Eventually, fists started flying along with the swords. They were going back hand in hand, with their blades just narrowly dodging and leaving faint cuts on their faces and their arms, legs, and everything in between. Just as they were preparing to strike once more, Professor Colbert would call for the fight to end, stating that both boys had fought valiantly and well, but that now it was time to draw it to a close, since the fight, if it were to continue any further, it might result in the loss of a limb or the loss of life. Both would agree and would retreat their swords back to their sheaths as they shook hands in sign of respect. Louise is very lucky to have someone like you as her familiar. With that, she'll always be safe, don't you think? Julio said with a smile. Damien couldn't help but grin in unison as Louise ran over to him, jumping on top and wrapping him in a hug. Are you all right? Seriously, Damien, why would you do something like this? It was just an exhibition. It's nothing you have to. Of course I'm going to worry. You got hurt, and I know it was because of me. Huh? You were jealous, weren't you? I'm not. Why does everyone keep thinking that I'm jealous? It was just a fight between respectable warriors. Jeesh. Nah, he was pretty jealous, Durf would say. Shut up. Swords are meant to be used in battle. The only time they should speak is when they clang with other swords. Yeah, but I ain't like other swords now, am I? There's nothing funny about this, Louise. Nothing funny at all, another voice would say. Louise would quickly freeze up as she was very sure she knew who that voice was coming from, and, well, she knew what was about to come next. Ow, stop pinching on my cheeks, ow! Chibi Louise, oh. Well, now Damien had another task at hand, meeting the family, or to be more specific, the second oldest sister, Louise's older sister. Eleanor de Della Valle. A rather stacked woman, to say the least. Blonde, but she was wearing glasses. Glasses. Those glasses. Glasses can really do a thing to a woman, Damien would think. But that was the least of their issues, as Louise was being dragged back home, and Damien found himself being dragged in the process. Before long, he found himself sitting in the family home of Louise and the Del Valerie family, along with Louise's other oldest sister, the oldest of the trio, Catalia Del Fontaine. She had already been married off, and now it was time for Louise to follow in the footsteps of her older sisters. Well, one of the older sisters. In the case of Eleanor, she still couldn't find a husband, but that was besides the point. Their father had already arranged for a marriage between Louise and the Duke, after the whole marriage with Wards had fallen through, and also, Louise's father would have to thank Damien in person. He had saved his daughter's life from being married to a potential rebel and a scoundrel of a man like Wards, and he had heard about the escapades of this famed familiar of his daughter, a young warrior going by the name of the Robin. The tales of the Robin were starting to grow all through the country, and his exploits could not be understated. Of course, much to Louise's surprise, Damien held his own in terms of being in a rather dignified air, more than even she could have anticipated. But for Damien, this was nothing new. Changing up from a hero costume to a tuxedo, making sure to know what the salad fork and regular forks and all of that other good stuff was, growing up in regalness and in wealth, that was nothing new to him. Plus, when you're the son of a genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist who has many, many hobbies, you end up picking up a thing or two. Conversation would carry on well until eventually it came back to Louise and about her future. With the threat of war on the horizon, her father made it perfectly clear that he did not want her getting involved in all of this, and that was why he had her called back home, so that she could be married off proper and serve in the role of a proper woman, being a good housewife and a caring future mother to his grandchildren. But of course, for Louise, she didn't want any of this. She was friends with the Queen, and if her power were needed, then she wanted to be there for her. Plus, she was still trying to figure out how to control her power in void magic, and she couldn't afford to stop all the process that she had made. But at the same time, she couldn't overrule those that were higher than her. The conversation would then turn to Damien, as he was asked about his input in all of this. You want to know what I think? Damien would say. Well, of course, Louise's father would say. I know that under normal circumstances, you wouldn't be taken into consideration, but it's clear to all of us that you are far from the average familiar, and you have worked closely with my daughter for a while now, since she is the one who summoned you. I'd like to know, what truly do you think of my daughter? Do you think that her place should be on a battlefield? Well, sir, in my honest opinion, I would say no. Louise looked to Damien, shocked that he would say that. What? No, Louise. You don't need to be on a battlefield of any kind. It's no place for you. I agree with your father. You should just... Louise got up from the dinner table and started to run away. Of course, Damien was expecting this. Louise's mother would apologize. She knew that her daughter could be rather stubborn at times. No, ma'am, you have no reason to apologize. She didn't give me a chance to finish, but it's all right. As Damien got up and excused himself, he walked through the halls of Louise's family mansion, looking at the photos and other paintings that hung on the wall, pictures of a smaller Louise with her family, watching as she grew through the years, seeing that bright and beautiful smile on her face. It was hard to imagine putting someone like that in the hell that was war. But of course, for the people of this world, they looked at things rather differently. War wasn't something that was shied upon. Of course, no sane man would seek war, but a wise one was always prepared for it. And for aristocrats, for nobles, war was a chance to build one's name and legacy, a chance to add to a family's prestige, how well you performed in a war, how good you did, or how bad you did could go a long way. And for Louise, she took that extremely seriously. As Damien was searching for her, he found himself in the presence of her oldest sister, Kalia. She was sitting in one of her rooms, looking out of the window at the garden down below. Hi, Damien, right? Yes, that's me. You're Louise's older sister? Yes, Kalia, nice to meet you. I know that we hadn't had a chance to speak properly before the family dinner. It's all right. I know, you were looking for Louise, weren't you? She can be a rather tricky one at times, can't she? Always stubborn and saying what's on her mind. She's not someone that's easily dissuaded. I'm sure that what you said probably hurt her feelings greatly. I wasn't trying to. I mean, she didn't even give me a chance to finish. I know. She's always jumping the gun, that girl. But I know that your heart's in the right place. I'm thankful for you. Ever since she was born, she always followed behind a lot of people, the people that she looked up to the most. Louise is someone who takes a lot of pride, Damien. She cares about what others say and what they think of her. It's why she's always trying to prove herself, to show that she isn't the dead weight. Of course, I've never thought that about her, but sadly it's what she often thinks of herself. I just wish that she had the inner confidence that her outer confidence shows. And I believe that you are someone who can do that best for her, as her familiar, but maybe even more so as a friend. What do you mean? I know she doesn't want to marry that old duke. It's clear as day. You know, she's written us a lot of letters. And, funny enough, one person always seems to come up in them. Ever since the day of the familiar summonings, it's always you. Whether she's complaining about you, arguing about you, worrying about you, or just praising everything that you do. Praising me? Kalia would hand a chest of letters over to Damien, and Damien got a chance to see for himself. All of them marked with dates, going back all the way to when they first met. Sure, some of the commentary was a bit less than savory, but at the same time, as he continued to read them one by one, Louise paid a lot of attention to him. She was always watching him whenever he was training or doing chores or anything else of that nature. She even wrote down about stuff that Damien didn't know that she was there for. she was always watching over him. She cared that much. It even expressed that when she practiced, she was doing it because she hoped that Damien would notice her efforts. And from the latest letter, he could tell that this is how she truly felt. Dear beloved sister, I've been working really hard recently to improve in my skills and my usage of magic. At first, I truly didn't think it mattered all of that much. I always thought that I was perfect just the way that I was. But Damien has opened up my eyes to an even greater truth. The truth is, I stink. I'm called the Zero for a reason. As much as I hate it, it's a part of me. But with Damien around, I have a feeling that I can be more. I can be more than just Louise the Zero. Perhaps it's unfair of me to say, but he gives me a reason to believe that I can change. I see it in him. I can tell that he and I aren't so different, but the way he carries himself is different. The way that he goes about his life is different from mine. At first, I hated that about him. I hated feeling like he knew me so well, despite only being my familiar. And yet sometimes I feel like he knows me better than anyone. He knows me enough to call me out on my mess. And as much as I hate it, it seems to be the thing that I love the most. I hope that whatever progress I make, even if it's just the smallest amount, I hope that he'll at least notice it. Notice that I'm actually trying. And I hope he still doesn't view me as the same girl he met 4 months ago. She really thinks this. Of course Damien took notice of her. It's why he kept calling her out on her mistakes. Because he noticed that she was getting better and better, but still, there was always room to improve. Where is she? I need to find her, Damien would say. She's down by the lake. She always liked to hide in the boats on the pier. It was her favorite spot. Damien would thank Kalia before moving down immediately to find her. And sure enough, she was in one of the canoes, hiding like she always did. What do you want? Louise, I've been looking all over for you. Everyone has. Why? Just to tell me more about how I'm not capable of doing anything? What? I'm not good enough to fight? I'm only good enough to be a housewife? Is that all I'm good for? No, damn it. You didn't let me finish. You didn't need to finish. I already know what you think of me. You still think that I'm the same spoiled brat of a girl I always was. Well, you know what? You're right. I am. And I can't change it. I can't change anything about myself, Damien. I'm the worst. I am the worst of the worst, and that's all I'll ever be. So why are you even going to... Louise, shut up! What? You're going to find me all the way out here just to tell me to shut up after coming to talk to me? You know what? No. You shut up. No, you shut up. No, you shut up. You know what? Ugh. I was trying to say to you, say what? What else do you have to say? What else could you possibly have to say to make me feel any worse than I already do? And it's just, I love you, damn it. You what? Okay, maybe love is a strong word. So, Louise, have you ever heard about One Bad Day, Louise? What? One bad day. One bad day. One day that goes so horribly wrong that it changes everything about you. One day that could go so terribly that it sets you on a path you can't turn back from. Louise, if something ever happened to you, if I ever lost you, that would be my one bad day. A day I could never fix. I don't know what I would do. I'm a I've done a lot of things, all right? A lot of things that I'm not proud of. A lot of bad things, Louise. If something happened to you, if some bastard on a battlefield killed you, took you away from me, I don't know what I would do. I just know I would start doing those bad things all over again. Hell, I would do them just to keep you safe. War is not pretty. There's no honor in it. There's no glory in war. People die. I don't want you to be one of them. I don't want to lose you, Louise. Because I don't know what I would do if I did. I don't know what type of man I would be if I lost you. I just know that I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. You see all of these things in me, and you think that I'm all these things, but losing you would be the one thing I can't handle. I didn't know you. Without warning, Damien pulled her close to himself. As the two of them embraced in yet their second kiss. He wasn't sure why or the reason, but he knew he wanted to. Perhaps this was just the hormones kicking in. Perhaps it was just his pride. Perhaps he wasn't thinking straight. Perhaps it was just the heat of the moment, but yet it felt right. Like this was what he wanted. With Louise, he felt something that he didn't know he could ever feel before. And because of that feeling, it led him to not always make the most rational decisions, and honestly, he didn't care. Because he had her. And for him, that was enough. Of course, for Louise, her mind was all over the place. I mean, on one hand, who the hell did he think he was, just coming around talking any which way and then pulling her into a kiss like that? But at the same time, he could keep going. Like, she wasn't going to complain about it. It's not like he was a bad kisser at all. And I mean, to be in a situation like this, not once, but twice, and to have a man take the initiative, that was kind of, yeah, she could get used to something like this. Well, safe to say, Louise, in all of her mixed emotion, confusion, had now gone rather docile. Because, well, what else could a girl do in a situation like this? And for Damien, it didn't help that her father and the family guards had arrived to find Damien, well, deep in mouth with his youngest daughter. What is the meaning of this, Damien? Sir, hi, Daddy. He's cute. What have you done to my baby girl? Sir, I did not do any. We're gonna get married. Kill him. Kill him now. Then resurrect him. Then burn him at the stake. Then resurrect him and kill him again. Then drown him. Then resurrect him. Perform CPR. And then kill him again. You know what, sir? This is obviously a bad time, so I'm just gonna run! Damien would take both of the oars and begin paddling across the lake, getting all the way to the horses that were on the other side. Thankfully enough, Kalia had called for the carriage to take the kids back to school, and hopefully it would give time for her father to cool down. As Damien and Louise would load up into the carriage, they would quickly speed off as they were being chased in the distance, with Louise being in a rather loopy state of loved, crazed affection and emotion as Damien held on for dear life as they escaped from the Belladare Manor. Even for Louise's mother, even she was happy to see that her daughter had finally found true love, and from a nice young man who was rather colorful. Strange, but colorful nonetheless. But what about Damien? Even in the midst of their running away, of holding on to Louise and gallivanting through the forest for dear life, one thing was for certain. As he looked down and he saw the smile on her face, he knew in his heart that that was a smile worth protecting. Nothing would ever befall her, no form of harm or worry. That was something Damien would promise to himself. This war, this conflict, he would never allow her to see it. And he would do everything in his power to stop it by any means necessary. This concludes Familiar of Zero, Tales of the Robin. What If Robin Was Louise's Familiar, Season 2, Part 2. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned tomorrow as we continue with Familiar of Zero, Tales of the Robin. What If Robin Was Louise's Familiar, Season 2, Part 3. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.